Hello everybody and welcome back to another My Porch Prints tutorial. Today we are going over the lace window tutorial, and I went ahead and used this as a cover for my flip book, but you could use this in a paper clip or a tag or a pocket, really anything that you would like. So let's go ahead and get started by looking at the materials we will be using today. You're going to be using clear gel tacky glue. You can get this at Walmart or pretty much any craft store. And I also like to use runner tape because I think it's a little less messy. And we will be using some leftover pretty papers. You can use anything. These are just what I had lying around. And also these positive quotations that came in our newest kit in the shop, which is the Feel Good Journal Kit. I definitely recommend checking that one out. And I also use some of these pretty papers from various other kits. Links to everything will be down in the description below. And I went ahead and just used some more plain looking paper since those will be going on the cover along with these rose fussy cuts. You can use any flowers, but I kind of wanted to stick with a pink hued theme for this little flip book. So these are the ones I went with. And I also ended up using this lace as a background for the layered label I will be using on the cover, but you can use anything you'd like. This is just what I had. And we're also going to be using these tags. We're going to go ahead and just cut out part of the pretty words on the cover of them to use for our cover labels. And you can use anything, but again, this is just what I sort of had lying around as extras. And we're also going to be taking a few journal words. These came from various kits, and you can use whichever ones you'd like. And optional, you can also use lace. I didn't end up using this on my second project, but I did on my first. And a pencil, an X-Acto knife, or scissors, either one. And I also ended up using this scrapbook trimmer. Again, this is totally optional. It just helps me get straighter cuts. And a bone folder, although this is also optional. You could also just use a ruler or your fingers to smooth things out. And of course, we will be needing lace. This one has been coffee dyed to give it a yellower appearance so it's not so bright white. A hole punch and some binder rings. These can be any size that you have. A link to these will be down in the description box below. And a quick reminder to try not to pinch your fingers. So for the first project I made, I ended up using cardboard for the cover, but I found that it was a little bit too thick and pretty difficult to cut using the X-Acto knives. So I decided to go ahead and change that for our second project and just use a manila envelope, which I found was much easier to cut through and also to hole punch through, and it just made the process a lot smoother. However, cardstock is perfectly fine if you don't have an envelope around. So to be starting off, we will be taking our inspirational quotes from our Feel Good kit, and I'm just going to cut one of these out to use as a guide for creating the cover the right size that we want. And to do that, we're going to go ahead and take the manila envelope and cut it in half because we only need a small portion of it, and I found that the other half just sort of gets in the way. So we're going to place our inspirational quotation card onto the manila envelope piece, and I'm just sort of placing it wherever I think looks good, and it doesn't really matter too much since we're just cutting out a little bit of a border. And I'm going to be using the ruler to try to keep it straight and making sure I leave just a little bit of allowance around the edge of the card, so the cover is slightly bigger than the cards on the inside. And something to remember is if you are going to be adding like lace to the bottom of the card, you'll want to make the cover a little bit bigger if you don't want the lace poking out of the bottom. But since I'm going to just be leaving them plain this time, I'm going to go ahead and make the border even all the way around. And when we're done, we're going to cut off all the excess and use that piece as a stencil for the back cover. And when you're done, you should have two identical pieces of paper. And I'm going to go ahead and grab one of those pretty pieces of paper from earlier, the decorative sheets, and I'm going to use it to cover one side of both of the covers that we are making. And you can use glue or tape, it really doesn't matter which one. However, when you are doing this, I found that it was better to only put the glue or tape on the edges of the paper, because if you do it in the middle, when we go to cut the hole out of the center of it, it sometimes will tear because the paper is stuck right where we're cutting and it just doesn't look as nice. So I tried to leave the middle fairly free of adhesive. And we're just gonna press those down anywhere on the paper and go ahead and cut those out. Alright, when you're done you should have something like this. And for the back you can use an identical piece of paper, but I went ahead and used what I had around, so they ended up being slightly different from one another, but I ended up liking that just fine. And next we will be cutting out the center of our covers, and for that I used a stencil that I had previously from making this project before, but to make that stencil I just went ahead and traced around a coffee cup or a candle. Pretty much anything you have around will do. And we are going to be taking that stencil and placing it in the lower half of the cover, just so that we have room at the top for our label. And I'll try to center it as best as I can and lightly trace around it. And something I noticed pretty much right away was that I might have put this a little bit too close to the bottom edge. Luckily it worked out for me, but I don't want anyone else accidentally cutting that little strip of paper, so just maybe move it up a little bit more than I did. And to cut it out, if you want to use scissors, just because it might be a little bit faster, I would suggest taking an X-Acto knife and cutting a small triangle out of the center of the circle. And this will give you a starting point for cutting it out with scissors that will make it just a little bit easier for you. However, I found that cutting it with scissors was a little too messy for me, so I decided to use the X-Acto knife. And this did take some time. I had to make several passes, but it was much easier than the cardboard that I used previously, and I found that it gave me a cleaner looking cutout. And when you're done, you should have something that looks a little like this. And we're going to go ahead and do the same to the back cover. And when you're all finished, this is what the product should look like. I noticed that I had a little bit of the paper pulling away right at that thin edge, so I just used some glue to glue it back down. And now for the fun part, which is adding the lace. There are two ways of doing this. This first one is just using a smaller piece of lace and gluing it down. I used the bone folder to press it flat, just making sure that the lace stays taut, and cut off any extra that was left behind. This saves a little bit of lace if you don't cover the entire card, just because lace can be a little more expensive, but if you don't mind, you can go ahead and cover the entire piece, which gives it a cleaner looking appearance. And it's really up to you, whatever your preference is. And the techniques are exactly the same. You just place it, glue it, flatten it, and cut off the excess. When you're done, you should have two little lace windows. Next up, we're going to go ahead and start making our labels. So I'm going to go ahead and cut these words off of these little cards. And I'm going to place them where I think that they look nice. Just make sure everything fits. And we're going to be placing these on top of a background. For this one, I went ahead and used that paper lace that comes with most of the My Porch Prints kits available on Etsy. And for the second one, I used this pocket because it had a nice sort of pink blush color, and I found that the lace sort of matched too closely and didn't give me that layered effect I was going for, so we're going to use the pink pocket. And to put everything together, we're just going to go ahead and glue everything down, making sure it fits, cutting off the excess. And we're going to add some journal words to this as well. These come with most of the My Porch Prints kits, and you can use whichever ones you like. And to add a little bit more of a layer, we're going to be putting some pink lace behind these words. And now that we have all of our pieces, time to assemble them just by gluing everything down. I put one of the words in the middle and one a little bit more to the left, just to give them some variation. And I'm making sure that I leave some room at the top for the hole punches. And next we are going to be adding some more journal words just to the lace part of the front covers. I went ahead and put one right in the middle and the other one a little bit closer to the top. Just gluing those down, and when they're done, we're going to go ahead and place our fussy cut flowers. I went ahead and placed mine around the edge. You can put them wherever you'd like, but I went ahead and put them around the edge of the window just because it did sort of remind me of a window and like a rose garden growing in front of the window, you know, like you might see in a cottage or something like that. That was sort of the inspiration for the covers overall. And once you have those placed, we're going to go ahead and just use some of that tacky glue and glue everything down. Okay, and here are the finished flipbook covers. I think they turned out really cute. I honestly love the see-through lace on the cover. And again, you can use these for paper clips or tags or pockets. It's just kind of a really pretty effect. And to finish off the covers, we're going to make a little bit of a stencil for our hole punches just so everything's even. And to do that, I just took a spare piece of paper and lined it up against the top of the inspirational cards and sort of marked with a pencil where I wanted the holes to be and punched those out. And then I was able to use that stencil to create the punches for the cover. That way everything stays fairly even so that the pages aren't too long or too short. But before we punch holes in the actual inspiration cards, we're going to go ahead and put on a decorative back using those spare pretty papers from before. And I'm just going to go ahead and tape mine down. You can use glue if you want, but again, I prefer tape because it's just a little bit cleaner. And we're going to go ahead and cut off any excess paper that is left behind. And when you're done, you should have something like this. That way we don't have to punch holes twice. We can just do it once and be done. Go ahead and use that stencil again. Make sure everything is nice and even. And now would be the time to ink edges or add any pretty decorative pieces if you want. I went ahead and just left mine sort of plain because I was in a bit of a hurry today and I'd already put one of these together before using lace. So if that's something you want to do, you can definitely add that to the bottom. And you can see what that looks like here. I went ahead and used white and pink lace, but you can use any colors you'd like or none at all. It's really up to you. And we're going to go ahead and put everything together using those binder clips from before. And it's pretty self-explanatory. Go ahead and place the back cover face down and line up all of the inspirational cards on top of that face up, and then put the final cover on. Just be careful not to pinch your fingers like I did. It hurts quite a lot. And this is the finished flipbook. I really liked how the lace window turned out. I think that the see-through effect is just very pretty and delicate and romantic, and this would make a really great little flipbook to give away as a gift or to put in your feel-good journal where you can just see all those inspirational quotes every day and be reminded of all the good things there are in life. I hope you found this tutorial helpful, and I can't wait to see you in the next video. Bye!